The sound comes first, boots hammering against cobblestones, steel striking steel, the guttural bark of men who are not here as friends. Then, the crash of a door, splinters flying like arrows through the torchlit dark. Imagine you're standing inside a stone chapel in Paris. It's October 13th, 1307. A Friday. The air smells of incense and cold iron. You've just finished morning prayers, still whispering the last words, when you hear it, that pounding at the gates. The Templars are awake now. Some grab swords. Others freeze, knowing the futility of it. You do neither. You're caught between instinct and disbelief. Who would dare? Then the doors give way. French soldiers flood in like a tide of wolves, armor clanking, faces set. Their leader reads out the king's orders, words you barely register over the roaring in your ears. Treason. Heresy. Idolatry. The crimes are endless. And in that moment you understand. It wasn't the Saracens who brought you down. Not the endless deserts of Outremer or the weight of your vows. It was your own king. You catch the eye of the Grand Master, Jacques de Molay. He doesn't shout. He doesn't flinch. He just nods, as if he saw this coming all along. Torches blaze. Shackles snap. And the most feared order of warrior monks in Christendom is led away like common thieves. This is how the story ends. But to understand why, we need to go back. To the very beginning. The sound of clanging gates fades. We step backward in time, like pulling on the threads of a tapestry. The cold Parisian night dissolves into sunburnt stone, and the salt-stained wind of the Holy Land. Picture this. The year is 1119. You're on a dusty road leading to Jerusalem, still raw from the blood of the First Crusade. The city itself feels like a wound, newly captured by Christian knights who see themselves as God's chosen warriors, but the scars of conquest are everywhere. Walls pitted with siege damage. Streets still reeking of smoke and sweat. And pilgrims, thousands of them, pouring in from all corners of Christendom, wide-eyed and trembling, desperate to touch the stones where Christ once walked. It should feel like triumph. It doesn't. Because outside these walls, there's danger. Bandits. Raiders. Muslim forces regrouping. Every mile of road between Jaffa and Jerusalem is a gamble with your life. This is where the story of the Templars truly begins. You and I walk into the shadow of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, a building the Crusaders believed to be the very Temple of Solomon. That name will stick, by the way. In time, it'll become their badge, their myth. There's a group of knights here, not many, 9 men, led by Hugues de Payens, a French noble with a stubborn streak and what you might call a dangerous amount of faith. They are not wealthy. They are not backed by armies. They take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, the same as monks. But unlike monks, they wear swords. Their mission? Astonishingly simple, heartbreakingly ambitious. To protect Christian pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem. 9 men. Guarding hundreds of miles of road crawling with thieves, mercenaries, and hostile forces. It's like trying to hold back the sea with a wooden bucket. And yet, somehow it works. Word spreads. Pilgrims begin telling stories of these poor fellow soldiers of Christ, who appear on lonely roads like avenging angels, chasing off bandits and escorting the faithful. Do they really have divine protection? Or are they just that good at their job? Either way, people notice. In 1129, the Templars receive official recognition from the Church. At the Council of Troyes, their rule is endorsed by none other than Bernard of Clairvaux, one of the most powerful and charismatic churchmen of the age. Bernard calls them a new knighthood, a fusion of monk and warrior, a living paradox, men who fight, but for God alone. This isn't just approval. It's branding. The Templars go from a ragged band of zealots to an officially sanctioned order, answerable only to the Pope. No king can command them. No bishop can claim them. It's like being knighted by God himself. We walk through their quarters, deep inside the old temple complex. There's no gold here. No banners of silk. Their clothes are plain wool, their boots caked with mud. But on their chests? The mark that will terrify the world for the next 2 centuries, a red cross on a white field. They live by a code, austere, almost brutal. No hunting. No gambling. No women. No extravagant meals. They even share horses 2 men to a steed. And yes, the image of 2 knights sharing 1 horse becomes one of their earliest symbols, part practicality, part PR. You begin to understand why people whisper that these men are different. Not just warriors. Not just monks. Something in between. And slowly, their numbers grow. Knights from France, England, Portugal, and beyond abandon their estates to join this holy experiment. Others, too old or too fearful to fight, pour money into the cause. Land, gold, manors. In less than a generation, the Templars evolved from a handful of road guards into one of the most respected military forces in the Crusader states. It feels unstoppable. And yet, as we stand here, watching them train in the yard, swords flashing in the Jerusalem sun, you can sense it. This is only the beginning. The road ahead will make them kings' bankers, papal enforcers, and the keepers of secrets so strange they'll one day be accused of heresy. But for now, they are just 9 men with a purpose. And purpose is a dangerous thing. Before there were Templars, there was chaos. It's hard to overstate how shocking the First Crusade, 1096 to 1099, must have felt to the medieval world. Imagine you're a farmer in France or England. One day, you're tilling your fields. The next, a priest is telling you that Pope Urban II has called on all of Christendom to take up arms and liberate Jerusalem from the infidels. And here's the hook. If you go, if you fight, if you die, your sins are forgiven. Heaven guaranteed. For thousands, this is irresistible. So they go. The march to Jerusalem is not the chivalric crusade of storybooks. It's a brutal, desperate exodus. We're talking about peasants, knights, priests, women, even children, all stumbling across Europe toward Constantinople. Many die before even reaching the Holy Land. Those who survive? They arrive in the Levant as strangers in a hostile world, exhausted, hungry, and terrified. And yet, somehow, in July of 1099, they capture Jerusalem. The accounts are gruesome. Blood running through the streets. Mosques and synagogues burned. It is a massacre dressed as a holy victory. But to medieval Christendom, it is a miracle. The holy city is theirs again. Now picture this. You're a pilgrim. You've scraped together what little wealth you have to walk to the holiest place in your faith. You've survived the journey across Europe, the Byzantine crossing, the searing deserts. You reach the gates of Jerusalem at last. And you die. Not of plague. Not of hunger. But because the roads are crawling with bandits and mercenaries who see unarmed pilgrims as easy prey. This is the world the Templars inherit. When the Templars first formed in 1119, they were nothing like the wealthy, fortress-owning juggernaut we picture later. These were men who owned nothing. Their rules, written with the help of Bernard of Clairvaux, are deliberately harsh. No personal possessions. Even clothing is issued, not chosen. 1 meal a day during certain seasons. Meat only on special days. No women. Ever. Not even family visits. No vanity. No embroidery on their clothes, no shiny trinkets, no long hair or fancy belts. If you were a knight before joining, you likely lived well, servants, silk shirts, wine whenever you pleased. As a Templar? You now share a bowl of thin gruel with your brothers, sleep in a dormitory on a straw mattress, and wear coarse wool that itches like penance. It's not glamorous. It's a test. Their daily life looks more like that of monks than soldiers. Prayers at set hours, even in the middle of the night. silence at meals, with scripture being read aloud as they eat. Manual labor, because humility is as important as swordplay. And yet, at any moment, they can be called to fight. This is the paradox that makes the Templars so compelling. They are killers for Christ, forbidden from fear or retreat, but bound by vows that strip them of almost everything worldly. It's not hard to see why this way of life draws men who crave more than wealth or glory. It offers purpose. And in the medieval world, purpose is worth more than gold. Step with me out of the dusty roads of Jerusalem for a moment and into the cool, echoing cloisters of a Cistercian abbey in France. It's quiet here, at least, it seems quiet. But behind those pale stone walls is a man whose voice will make the medieval world tremble. Bernard of Clairvaux. If the Templars had swords, Bernard gave them something just as powerful, a story. Bernard was no ordinary monk. He was a Cistercian abbot, austere and severe, but with a charisma that could disarm kings. Imagine a man who sleeps little, eats less, and spends his waking hours writing letters that can ruin your career, or save your soul. Bernard had influence over popes, bishops, and monarchs. He was the kind of churchman who could rebuke a king to his face and make the king apologize for wasting his time. When the Templars, a ragtag band of warrior monks still begging for scraps, needed legitimacy, they found their champion in Bernard. It's 1129, in the city of Troyes. The Templars present their case to a council of church leaders. They want formal recognition. And there, like a shadow behind them, is Bernard. He speaks for them. No, more than that, he defines them. In his writings, Bernard calls them a new knighthood, not just soldiers, not just monks, but a fusion of the two, divinely sanctioned and untouchable by earthly corruption. To medieval ears, that's explosive. Shortly after the council, Bernard pens what is effectively the Templars' manifesto. In praise of the new knighthood, the Laudi Novi Militiae. It's part sermon, part propaganda, part recruitment drive. He tells knights across Europe that they've been wasting their lives fighting for pride, greed, and vanity. But the Templars? They fight for Christ. They fight for the weak. They fight for eternity. And they are not afraid of death, because their deaths are martyrdom. It's brilliant. It reframes the blood and brutality of the Crusades as a sacred act. Suddenly, being a Templar isn't just noble, it's holy. Bernard doesn't stop at theology. He helps shape the Templars' image as humble, incorruptible, and utterly devoted. No luxuries. No wives. No fear. He casts them as warrior monks, living examples of perfect Christian knighthood. For men who wanted more than the drunken violence of feudal warfare, this was irresistible. To fight and know God approves? To die and be assured of heaven? Templar recruitment surges. Donations pour in. Within a generation, the once obscure Order of 9 Knights has become an elite spiritual army, answerable only to the Pope. Without Bernard, the Templars might have remained what they were at the start. A handful of idealists with swords. With Bernard, they became an institution. And like all great institutions, they were more than just people. They were an idea. An idea that would grow so vast and so threatening that one day it would get them killed. We leave the abbey now, Bernard's words echoing like a battle hymn. Beyond those walls lies the real world, Templar castles rising in stone and steel, pilgrims walking under their protection, kings coming to them for loans. This is no longer a band of poor knights. This is a machine. Next stop? We walk through the gates of a Templar fortress, into the daily life, discipline, and secrets of an order that straddled the line between monastery and military camp. This is no grand hall. No banners hang here. The air smells of wax, sweat, and fear. You've just been summoned to your initiation as a Knight Templar. And if the rumors are true, you may regret walking through that door. For all their visibility on the battlefield, the Templars kept their most sacred rituals in the shadows. To join them was no casual affair. Imagine kneeling on the cold stone floor, stripped of your armor, your sword laid aside. Your clothes gone. You wear a simple tunic. A senior brother asks if you truly wish to join, not just as a soldier, but as a servant of Christ, bound by vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience until death. He warns you. You will eat at the same table as your brothers. You will sleep in their dormitory. You will own nothing. You will go where you are sent. You will fight without fear, and you may die without glory. If you hesitate, even for a heartbeat, the ceremony ends. If you agree, you swear yourself to the order, to God, and to your brothers. Then they give you the white mantle, the iconic cloak of the Templars, symbol of purity and death. For only a Templar wears white into war. A crimson cross is sewn onto it. Blood-colored. Christ-colored. And just like that, you are no longer yourself. You are part of the militia of Christ. But what happened in the shadows? That's the official version. But what about the whispers? Because here's the thing, for centuries people whispered that something else happened in those dark initiation rooms. When the Templars fell, their enemies accused them of horrific things. Spitting on the cross. Denying Christ. Kissing other men on the base of the spine, the navel, or the mouth. Worshipping a strange idol, a bearded head, maybe even the severed head of John the Baptist. Heretical? Absolutely. But was it true? During their arrests in 1307, King Philip IV's men tortured captured Templars into confession. Under duress, some admitted to these blasphemous acts. One knight claimed they spat on the cross as part of a test. Another said they were ordered to kiss their new brother in 3 places as a sign of humility and obedience. The idol? Described by some as a mummified head, by others as a head of metal or stone. They gave it names: Baphomet the Savior, the head of wisdom. Did these confessions reveal truth? Or were they fabrications forced by torture, designed to destroy the order? We may never know. But here's what's undeniable. The secrecy of the Templar rites fueled these rumors. Unlike many monastic orders, the Templars answered only to the Pope. No bishop could oversee their ceremonies. No king could demand to see their records. To the medieval imagination, what happens in the dark must be wicked. And in a world where mystery and heresy often blurred, the Templars became the perfect canvas for fear. There's also something deliberate here, a psychological game. These rituals stripped recruits of everything: wealth, vanity, personal identity. They were reborn as Templars. To walk out of that room wasn't just to gain a new brotherhood. It was to lose yourself entirely. And for the men who emerged, cloaked in white and bearing the red cross, that transformation was more frightening to their enemies than any sword. We're deep under a fortress now, in a vault that smells of damp stone and dust older than memory. The torchlight feels different here. Lower. Hotter. This is where the rumors live. For centuries, this has been one of the darkest corners of the Templar mythos. The idol, the so-called head that supposedly turned pious knights into heretics. Was it real? And if so, what exactly was it? When King Philip IV's men arrested the Templars in 1307, they needed more than vague charges of corruption. They needed horror. So under torture, Templars confessed to strange rites. Spitting on the cross during initiation, renouncing Christ in whispers, and worshipping an idol, often described as a head. What kind of head? That depends on which terrified prisoner you asked. Some said it was a severed, mummified head, perhaps one of John the Baptist. Others described a metal or stone head with 2 faces, glowing eyes, even a beard like a man's. One chilling account claimed it had the power to make the land fruitful and the trees flower. A sacred relic? A pagan god? A demon? The answer depends on who you believed, and how much pain they were in when they told their story. Many of these confessions used a single strange word: Baphomet. It appears nowhere in Orthodox Christianity. It sounds foreign, almost garbled. Some historians think it was a medieval mishearing of Muhammad, and that the Templars were being smeared as secret Muslim sympathizers. Others argue it was a code, a corruption of words like baptism, wisdom, or even Abu Fahamet, Arabic for father of understanding. Whatever its origin, the name stuck. And centuries later, Baphomet would be reborn, no longer just a Templar rumor, but a symbol of the occult. Fast forward to the 19th century. Occultists and esoteric thinkers like Eliphas Levi pick up the old Templar charges and breathe new life into them. They imagine Baphomet not as a decaying head, but as a goat-headed, winged figure, a being of balance, embodying both light and dark, male and female, above and below. Suddenly, this isn't just about the Templars anymore. Baphomet becomes a sigil of secret knowledge, a guardian of mysteries, a patron of hidden truths. In one leap, the Templars go from accused heretics to keepers of forbidden wisdom, a thread connecting them to alchemy, Freemasonry, and modern occultism. But strip away the occult symbolism, and we're still left with a haunting question. Did the Templars actually keep a head? It's not impossible. We know they collected relics, crosses, bones of saints, fragments of the true cross. A head, especially one said to be of John the Baptist, would have been the ultimate prize. If they had one, did they worship it? Or was it simply venerated as a relic, twisted into heresy by interrogators desperate for scandal? Whether real or imagined, the idol worked. It blackened their name, gave Philip IV the ammunition he needed, and painted the Templars as something worse than traitors. Blasphemers, sorcerers, occultists. It also gave them a second life. Because if the Templars kept secrets worth dying for, then maybe, just maybe, some of those secrets survived. And that possibility still thrills conspiracy hunters, esotericists, and storytellers to this day. We leave the vault now, the smell of candle wax and something unnameable clinging to us. Outside, the fortress looms, its towers cutting into the sky like judgment. Whatever the truth of the idol, it became the perfect weapon, for Philip, for the Inquisition, and later for every mythmaker who wanted to turn the Templars into the gatekeepers of hidden knowledge. Next stop? We climb those towers and walk their walls, into the heart of the Templars' world, their fortresses, their commanderies, and the disciplined life that made them more than mere warriors. The first thing you notice is the wind. It howls through the battlements like a living thing, dry, relentless, carrying the scent of stone, sweat, and a faint trace of incense from the chapel. We've arrived at a Templar fortress, somewhere along the borderlands of the Crusader states. Maybe it's Croix de Chevaliers, that sprawling stone beast in modern-day Syria. Maybe it's a smaller commandery in France, built to house and train brothers before they ship out to the Holy Land. It doesn't matter. The feeling is the same. This is no mere castle. This is a monastery sharpened into a weapon. Step through the gate, and you're swallowed by walls thicker than a man is tall. The entrance is a trap, a killing corridor designed so enemies who breach it won't live long enough to celebrate. Inside, the space opens up into a courtyard ringed with dormitories, stables, storerooms, and chapels. Everything here has purpose. No space is wasted. Look up, you'll see machicolations, those jutting stone balconies where boiling oil or stones could be dropped on invaders. Look down, and you might spot the cisterns, massive underground reservoirs. A fortress like this can outlast a siege not for days but for months. And in the heart of it all, beyond the barracks and armories, stands the chapel. It's simple, unadorned. A space for quiet prayer before the next bloodbath. That's the paradox of the Templars in stone form, half sanctuary, half slaughterhouse. You might think life here is constant chaos, training, riding, sharpening swords. It isn't. It's routine. Monastic routine. The Templars wake at matins, well before dawn. The chapel bell calls them to their first prayers, voices murmuring Latin psalms in the chill of early morning. After that, the day splits. Combat training, not the flashy, nightly jests of Arthurian romance, but brutal drills, formation riding, shield walls, spear thrusts, and mock assaults. Maintenance, tending weapons, cleaning armor, caring for horses. Their gear is their lifeline, and it gleams from constant labor. Work and watch. Some brothers maintain the fortress, some guard the walls, others manage the stores and ledgers. Yes, ledgers. Even warrior monks need accountants. Meals are communal and silent, punctuated only by scripture readings. Meat? Rare. Wine? Watered. At night, they pray again, then sleep in dormitories, often in full or partial armor, ready to be roused by a horn at any hour. Their rules, drawn up with help from Bernard of Clairvaux, are ascetic. No personal possessions. A Templar owns nothing but what the order gives him. No gambling. No hunting for sport. No ostentatious clothing. Women are forbidden. Not just physically. Templars were instructed not even to kiss their mothers or sisters. They live like monks, only their cloisters have walls designed to withstand catapults. Step into the stables and you smell hay, leather, and animal heat. Here you see what made the Templars terrifying, their cavalry. Each knight is paired with up to 3 horses, battle-trained, responsive, worth more than gold. The image of 2 knights sharing a single horse, once their emblem, speaks to their humble beginnings. But by their peak, they are mounted like kings, and they train these beasts relentlessly, teaching them to withstand the chaos of battle, the screams, the drums, the smell of blood. A Templar without his horse is dangerous. A Templar on horseback? Unstoppable. Here's something people forget. Most Templars weren't knights. They were sergeants and lay brothers, men who wore black mantles instead of white, who cooked, cleaned, managed supplies, and supported the knights. Someone had to keep the fortress running, and these men did it. Without them, the Templars are just hungry warriors with no infrastructure. It's these quieter brothers who make the order feel less like a band of knights and more like a self-contained city. You might imagine all this piety makes them soft. It doesn't. The Templars were ruthlessly disciplined. Break your vows? Face punishment, fasting, flogging, or worse. Flee from battle? Your punishment is expulsion. Die in sin? No burial in sacred ground. It's not cruelty. It's control. It's what keeps this machine functioning. Between wars, life is a strange limbo. Templars practice their drills. They patrol. They pray. They wait. But the waiting doesn't dull them. It hones them. Every brother knows the horn could sound tomorrow. And when it does, these silent, ascetic men will ride out as an iron wall, white mantles snapping in the wind, red crosses like blood in the sun. We step back outside now, into the harsh light of the courtyard. Around us, the fortress hums with quiet purpose, a living engine of faith and war. It's easy to see why kings feared them, why pilgrims adored them, and why their enemies painted them as monsters. But here's the thing. This monastic war machine isn't just for battle. It's for power. And power, in medieval Europe, doesn't just come from swords. It comes from coin. Next, we follow the money, into the counting rooms and treasuries where the Templars transformed from God's warriors into Christendom's bankers. The chapel bells are silent. The clatter of armor fades. Instead, we hear the soft scratching of quills and the clink of coins against wood. Welcome to the counting room. If the battlefield made the Templars feared, this made them untouchable. It's easy to forget that the Templars began as paupers. In their early days, they owned nothing. They relied on alms, living off donations from pious nobles and pilgrims who saw them as God's chosen defenders. But once Bernard of Clairvaux and the Council of Troyes legitimized them, the floodgates opened. Landowners across Europe started donating estates, farms, entire villages to the order. A dying noble who wanted to fast-track his soul to heaven, he left his castle to the Templars. A king who needed protection for his pilgrims, he gave them revenues from trade routes. Every gift, every bequest, every indulgence added up. Within a century, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ were one of the richest institutions in medieval Europe. But this wasn't just wealth. This was infrastructure. Picture this: you're a pilgrim from England, headed to the Holy Land. The roads are crawling with thieves. You're terrified of carrying gold. The Templars offer a solution. You go to a Templar commandery in London or Paris. You deposit your funds. They give you a coded letter of credit, a medieval traveler's check. You travel unarmed, with nothing of value. When you reach Jerusalem, you present the letter. They pay you out, minus a modest fee, of course. It's simple, safe, revolutionary. In an age where carrying coin across borders was a death sentence, the Templars made money portable. And in doing so, they invented early banking. But it didn't stop with pilgrims. Soon, kings and princes were coming to the Templars, not for spiritual aid, but for loans. Need to fund a war? Build a castle? Pay a ransom? The Templars could finance it. They didn't just keep money. They moved it, invested it, lent it. Even the King of England kept funds with the Templars. The French crown was deeply indebted to them. They became the bankers of Christendom, their network of commanderies functioning like a medieval version of Western Union, J.P. Morgan, and the Pentagon rolled into one. Walk with me now into their treasury in Paris, their temple, as it was called. Thick walls, iron locks, armed guards in white mantles. Inside, gold coins from Genoese merchants, silver from English mines, jewels from Crusader princes, relics too sacred to display. It's all catalogued, recorded by scribes with ink-stained fingers who guard their ledgers as fiercely as the knights guard their walls. The Paris Temple wasn't just a treasury. It was a vault for Europe itself. The Templars had a unique privilege. They answered only to the Pope. No king could tax them. No lord could demand their revenues. If you owed the Templars, you didn't just owe a military order. You owed an army backed by the papacy. Imagine how that looked to a struggling monarch. You're broke. They're rich. You need them. They don't need you. It bred resentment, and, as we'll see later, it planted the seeds for their destruction. But wealth is heavy. It makes you visible. It makes you envied. Whispers began. Are they really serving Christ, or themselves? Do they worship God, or gold? To the common people, their riches looked like hypocrisy. To kings, it looked like a threat. And to Philip IV of France? It looked like an excuse. For all their reputation as warriors, the counting house was here, in ink and calculation, that they reshaped Europe. The Templars didn't just invent a way for pilgrims to carry money safely. They created a system of credit that feels startlingly modern. When you deposited funds at one Templar commandery, the amount wasn't simply recorded in one ledger. It was entered into a network, a chain of records maintained across Europe and the Holy Land. This meant you could withdraw funds at any Templar house, whether in London, Paris, Acre, or Antioch. You didn't need to carry cash. Your wealth existed as an entry in their books. They even developed coded letters of credit, early forms of travelers' checks, to prevent forgery. In a world where kingdoms had wildly different coinage and no universal banking, the Templars created a pan-European financial grid. It's no exaggeration. They were the first truly international bankers. Then there was their role in ransom negotiations. In the medieval world, if a king or noble was captured, the Templars became the paymasters of mercy. When King Louis IX of France was captured during the Seventh Crusade, the Templars handled the negotiations, and delivered the astronomical ransom of 400,000 livres tournois, a sum that would have bankrupted most states. Why them? Because they had liquid assets, fast communication across continents, and the military might to guarantee safe delivery. If you needed a king ransomed, or an army funded, or a crusade financed, you went to the temple. In time, kings stopped just borrowing from the Templars. They started storing their own treasuries with them. The King of England kept crown revenues in the Temple's London house. The French crown used the Temple in Paris as its de facto bank. This was more than convenience. It was security. Templar fortresses weren't just castles. They were impregnable vaults guarded by battle-hardened monks who feared neither king nor robber. When a crown jewel or royal treasury was in Templar hands, it was untouchable. The Templars also became landlords and traders. Those donated estates across Europe? They didn't just sit idle. The Templars farmed them, taxed them, and used the revenues to fund their war machine. They ran vineyards in France, sheep farms in England, olive groves in Spain, and ports along the Mediterranean. They operated ships that carried pilgrims, troops, and goods between Europe and the Holy Land. Over time, the Templars became not just a military order, but an economic organism, self-sustaining, diversified, and terrifyingly efficient. All this changed Europe in ways that ripple even now. They normalized credit at a time when usury laws made lending suspect. They connected distant economies, from the English countryside to the Levantine ports. They created a model of multinational finance, centuries before the Medici, long before the Rothschilds. For medieval Europe, this was more than progress. It was revolutionary. But with innovation came danger. The Templars were too rich to ignore, too independent to control. They didn't just fund kings. They outlasted them. They didn't just collect taxes. They owned the roads you traveled to pay them. And when you're a king, say, Philip IV of France, staring down debts you can't repay to an order you can't command, you start looking for ways to erase the ledger. We leave the counting house now, its air thick with dust and ambition. Outside, the fortress walls seem taller than before, but so does the shadow they cast. Because the Templars' wealth wasn't just coin. It was leverage. And in the medieval world, leverage often bought you enemies with sharper swords than friends. Next, we step into the whispers, the accusations of heresy, idolatry, and forbidden knowledge that turn these warrior bankers into targets of fear. The counting rooms are silent now. The clink of coin is replaced by murmurs, hushed, dangerous murmurs, that slither through the streets of Paris, London, Rome. This is where the Templars stop being warrior monks and become something far more dangerous in the medieval imagination: heretics. It's October 13th, 1307. A Friday. Across France, at dawn, Templar commanderies are stormed by the men of King Philip IV. The charges? Not debt, though Philip owed the Templars a fortune. Not treason, though he feared their power. No, Philip accuses them of heresy. That word, in medieval Europe, is a death sentence. And what heresies? Oh, he doesn't hold back. Spitting on the cross. Denying Christ during initiation. Kissing one another on the spine, the navel, the mouth. Worshipping a mysterious idol, the infamous head, called Baphomet. Engaging in obscene rites, sodomy, and secret blasphemies. It's lurid. It's shocking. And it's almost certainly manufactured. But Philip knows what he's doing. Heresy isn't just a sin, it's a crime against God and society. It strips the Templars of papal protection. It makes their wealth forfeit. It makes their destruction legal. And then come the confessions. Templars, proud, scarred veterans of the Crusades, break under torture. The rack. The boot. The strappado. Some say yes, they spat on the cross. Others admit to kissing their brothers in forbidden places. A few speak of the idol, a bearded head with magical powers. Historians know the value of confessions pulled on the rack, nothing. But in 1307, to the average citizen? It's enough. The Templars, those untouchable warrior monks, look guilty. Did they spit on the cross? Some scholars believe that if this happened, it might have been a psychological test, a ritual of humiliation meant to crush pride and test obedience, similar to rites used by other monastic orders. As for the kissing? In the Middle Ages, ritual kissing wasn't erotic. It symbolized submission, peace, and unity. Could a kiss on the spine or navel have been part of a symbolic initiation? Maybe. But in a French courtroom eager for scandal, that kiss becomes evidence of depravity. And the idol? That's murkier. Some think it was propaganda. Others suspect the Templars venerated relics, maybe even a head of John the Baptist, which, under interrogation, became twisted into blasphemy. As for Baphomet, the name appears nowhere before the trials. It may have been a garbled reference to Muhammad, Philip casting the Templars as secret Muslims, or a coded word for something else entirely. But here's the key: the truth didn't matter. Once whispered, these accusations took on a life of their own. The Templars, once heroes, became the villains of every tavern tale. Did they secretly worship a devil? Did they hoard relics and forbidden knowledge from the Holy Land? Were they pagans disguised as Christians? The Order's secrecy made them an easy target. Their closed initiations, their vows of silence, their independence from bishops, all of it fed the idea that they had something to hide. And in medieval Europe, secrecy is almost as bad as sin. At first, Pope Clement V hesitated. The Templars were his men, answerable only to him. But Philip pushed. He pressured. He threatened. And the tide of rumors swelled until even Rome couldn't ignore it. By 1312, under immense political pressure, Clement officially dissolves the order. The verdict? The Templars are defamed. Their sins are unknown. But their scandal makes them impossible to keep alive. In other words, we don't know what you did, but the rumors are too big to ignore. And just like that, the Templars vanish. Their leaders are executed. Their land seized. But the whispers don't die. If anything, they grow. In the centuries that follow, the Templars become the stuff of myth. Keepers of the Holy Grail. Guardians of Solomon's secrets. Masters of occult rites that gave them power beyond kings. Philip may have killed the order, but in doing so, he gave them immortality. We leave the courtroom now, the smell of burnt flesh and ink-stained verdicts lingering in the air. But the Templars' story isn't over. If anything, this is where it begins, the transformation of flesh and blood knights into the stuff of legend. Next, we chase the myth, into the Grail legends, the esoteric whispers, and the Templars' strange second life in the world of secret societies and hidden treasures. The last Grand Master of the Templars burns at the stake in 1314, his silhouette twisting in the flames, but his death does something strange. It doesn't close the chapter. It opens a door. The order is dead in the eyes of kings and popes, yet alive in the imagination of the people. And in that imagination, the Templars stop being mere warrior monks. They become keepers of forbidden truths, guardians of treasures too holy, or too dangerous, for the world to see. The Templars weren't accused of seeking the Holy Grail during their lifetimes. That connection comes later, in the realm of romance and legend, and it sticks like wax on a seal. In the late 12th century, French poet Chrétien de Troyes introduces the idea of a mysterious, holy vessel in his unfinished work Perceval. It isn't quite the Grail we know today, but the seed is planted. A generation later, German poet Wolfram von Eschenbach takes it further in his Parzival. His Grail is no mere cup. It's a stone of divine power, guarded by an elite brotherhood called the Templars. Even the name feels like an echo of the Templars, a thinly veiled nod to the order whose white mantles and crimson crosses were still fresh in the public memory. It's a brilliant stroke of storytelling. The Templars, recently disgraced and executed, are recast not as heretics but as holy custodians, sworn to protect Christ's most sacred relic. And the idea catches fire. Why did the Grail legend fuse so neatly with the Templars? Because it made sense. Here was an order that lived at the epicenter of biblical history, headquartered on the ruins of Solomon's Temple. They had access to places no one else did: crypts, ruins, archives buried under centuries of conquest. They were secretive, performing rites behind closed doors, answering only to the Pope. They were rich beyond measure, yet claimed poverty. To the medieval imagination, this could only mean one thing: they had found something. Something too powerful to reveal. Was it the Grail? The Ark of the Covenant? Secret scriptures? Esoteric knowledge smuggled from the East? The truth didn't matter. The story, that they held divine, dangerous knowledge, was enough. When the Templars were arrested in 1307, King Philip's men seized their lands, their castles, and their accounts. But they never found their treasures. The ledgers in Paris spoke of wealth, but the vaults were curiously empty. So the legend grows. The Templars hid their gold before the arrests, spirited away in wagons that vanished into the night. They buried relics, perhaps even the Grail, in remote strongholds like Tomar in Portugal or Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland. They scattered secrets to sympathetic nobles and coded them into manuscripts. This wasn't just fantasy. It was plausible. The Templars had the networks, the forewarning, and the resources to hide what they wanted. And when you can't prove what's missing, the imagination fills in the blanks. By the 13th and 14th centuries, the Grail isn't just a relic. It's a metaphor for divine knowledge. Some writers frame it as the ultimate Christian relic, the cup of the Last Supper or the vessel that caught Christ's blood at the crucifixion. Others, especially later mystics, make it something stranger, a symbol of enlightenment, a key to eternal life, even a portal to direct communion with God. And who better to guard such a thing than an order of warrior monks with one foot in the material world and one in the spiritual? The Grail becomes the perfect story for the Templars, a way to rewrite their history from fallen order to eternal guardians of the divine. Fast forward to the 18th and 19th centuries. Europe is gripped by a fascination with esoteric traditions, alchemy, mysticism, secret brotherhoods. Enter the Freemasons. These fraternal orders, with their own secret rituals and symbols, adopt the Templars as spiritual ancestors. Some Masonic rites even claim direct descent from surviving Templars who fled to Scotland or Portugal. Was it historically accurate? Almost certainly not. But it didn't need to be. The Templars, cloaked in mystery, were a blank canvas for anyone seeking a noble lineage for their own secret knowledge. Occult thinkers like Eliphas Levi push it further. In the 19th century, Levi reimagines the Templars' supposed idol, Baphomet, as a goat-headed figure of hidden wisdom, a composite of light and dark, male and female, heaven and earth. It's not historical. It's myth-making. But it cements the Templars as symbols of forbidden wisdom, the bridge between the Christian West and the mysteries of the East. Even today, the Templars live on in the Grail legends and the secret society lore they inspired. They haunt the pages of Dan Brown's thrillers and the frames of Indiana Jones. They fuel conspiracy theories about hidden bloodlines, secret archives, and world-controlling cabals. They're invoked by modern groups, from Masonic rites to Neo-Templar orders, who see them as the eternal brotherhood of guardians, still protecting truths the world isn't ready for. History ended them. Myth resurrected them. We leave the realm of the Grail now, but the story doesn't grow quieter. If anything, it grows darker. Because for all their imagined secrets, the Templars still had very real enemies. And those enemies weren't content with rumors. They wanted blood. Next, we step into the heart of betrayal, the arrests, the torture, and the fiery deaths that brought the Templars crashing down. It is still night when the sound of hoofbeats reaches the temple in Paris. A storm of iron-shod hooves against cobblestones, growing louder, closer. Inside the fortress, the warrior monks of Christ are asleep, dreaming of battlefields and prayers, unaware that this is the last night they will ever wake as free men. It is October 13th, 1307. A date that will cling to the order forever, a day of infamy so lasting that even now, centuries later, Friday the 13th carries a shadow of dread. Across France, the king's men strike at once. Coordinated dawn raids on every Templar commandery, from their farms in the countryside to their great house in Paris, a fortress so imposing it is known simply as the Temple. At the head of it all is King Philip IV, called Philip the Fair. Fair in face, not in heart. Philip is broke, crippled by war debts, choking under loans he cannot repay, loans owed to the Templars. He owes them gold. He owes them his pride. And that is something no king can bear. The Templars wake to the pounding of fists and the blare of horns. The gates splinter under the weight of soldiers. Torches flare in the darkness. Knights scramble for weapons, but they are unprepared. They aren't in the Holy Land now. This isn't an army they can meet on the field. This is their king, and he comes not as a foe in war but as a thief in the night. In Paris, Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, is dragged from his chambers in chains. He doesn't fight. He doesn't beg. Chroniclers say he goes quietly, resigned, perhaps even expecting this betrayal. Within hours, hundreds of Templars are seized across France. But Philip knows he cannot simply imprison God's knights. No, he must make them monsters. Within days, his accusations are plastered across France. The Templars are heretics. They spit on the cross during their secret rites. They deny Christ and worship a strange, bearded idol. They indulge in unnatural acts during their initiations. They have forsaken God for the devil. It is a grotesque list, designed for maximum outrage. And the people believe it. How could they not? The order has always been secretive. Its rites are closed. Its members answer only to the Pope. In the medieval mind, secrecy smells like sin. The first interrogations begin within days. The methods are brutal. The rack. The strapado. The boot. Templars are stretched until their joints pop. Suspended by their arms until their shoulders dislocate. Crushed in iron boots until their bones shatter. Under such agony, men will confess to anything. And so they do. Yes, we spat on the cross. Yes, we kissed our brothers on the mouth, the navel, the spine. Yes, we worshipped a strange head called Baphomet. The confessions are contradictory, often nonsensical. But they are enough. Enough for Philip. Enough for his inquisitors. Enough for the mob. The Templars are guilty. Because Philip needs them to be guilty. Pope Clement V is caught between a rock and a burning pyre. The Templars are his men, an order answerable only to him. But Philip is relentless, a king who has already bullied and humiliated the papacy once before. In 1307, Clement protests. He tries to delay. But Philip tightens his grip. Soon, the Pope agrees to what he calls a temporary suspension of the order. It will become permanent. For the next 5 years, the Templars are picked apart like carrion. Trials drag on across Europe, fueled by confessions wrung from torture. Property is seized, first by the crown, then by the church. Knights are imprisoned, starved, beaten into madness. The once proud warrior monks of Christ, men who had faced down Saracen armies, who had charged into the fires of the crusades, are reduced to broken shells, mumbling whatever their captors want to hear. On May 12, 1310, in Paris, 54 Templars are burned alive in a single day. Witnesses say they go to their deaths singing psalms, refusing to recant their order or their vows. Their ashes scatter in the wind, carried over the Seine. And then, at last, there is Jacques de Molay. For 7 years he has rotted in Philip's dungeons. But on March 18, 1314, he is led to a scaffold before Notre Dame in Paris. He is expected to confess again, to validate Philip's verdict one final time. Instead, he does the unthinkable. He retracts every confession he ever made under torture. He declares the Templars innocent, their order pure, their accusers corrupt. And then, knowing full well what it means, he goes to the stake. Chroniclers say he dies without a scream, staring down the flames with the calm of a man who has nothing left to lose. As the fire consumes him, Jacques de Molay speaks. According to legend, he curses Philip and Clement, summoning them to stand before God's judgment within the year. And strangely, they do. Pope Clement dies within a month. Philip dies before the year's end. Coincidence? Divine vengeance? Or just another story woven into the growing legend of the Templars? The people believe what they want to believe. We leave Paris now, the smell of burnt flesh still in the air, the echo of Jacques de Molay's final defiance clinging to the stones. The order is dead, but its legend is not. In death, the Templars become something even more powerful than they were in life, an idea, an enigma, a ghost that will haunt kings, mystics, and treasure hunters for centuries. Next, we follow those ghosts into the scattered remnants of the Templar Brotherhood, the secret societies that claimed their mantle, and the theories that they never truly died at all. The pyres have cooled. The chains are empty. The red cross that once terrified kings now hangs only in memory. But history doesn't end so neatly. The Templars may have been burned, but their shadow stretches on, long, ragged, and full of unanswered questions. When Pope Clement V officially dissolved the order in 1312, the Templars ceased to exist, at least on paper. Their lands were largely handed over to the Knights Hospitaller, another military order loyal to the Church. Their treasuries were seized by the crown. Their knights were imprisoned, executed, or exiled. That's the official version. But what of the men who weren't captured? What of the Templar fleets docked in French ports the night before the arrests? What of the rumors of wagons leaving Paris under the cover of darkness, carrying the secret treasure of the temple to destinations unknown? Here, history fades, and legend begins. The Templars maintained a formidable naval presence, especially in the ports of La Rochelle and Marseilles. Yet when Philip's men came for them, the ships were gone. Contemporary accounts suggest that a Templar fleet slipped away, just days before the arrests, vanishing into the Atlantic. Where did they go? Some say Portugal, where the Templars were quietly absorbed into a new order, the Order of Christ. Others whisper of Scotland, where the exiled knights fought alongside Robert the Bruce at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, a theory fueled by strange accounts of mysterious knights, tipping the balance that day. And then there are the dreamers who take it further. The Templars sailed west, beyond the maps of medieval Europe, carrying their secrets, and their treasures, to lands unknown. Portugal is the one place where the survival story isn't just rumor. King Denis of Portugal refused to persecute the Templars. Instead, in 1319, he created the Order of Christ, a new military order that absorbed the Templar Knights, their lands, and much of their leadership. Under a new name, they thrived. 2 centuries later, the Order of Christ would fund the voyages of Prince Henry the Navigator, seeding Portugal's golden age of exploration. In this way, you could argue, the Templars didn't die. They became explorers, financiers, and architects of a new world. Then there's Scotland. In 1307, it was excommunicated, its king, Robert the Bruce, defying Rome. That made Scotland a perfect refuge for fugitive Templars. Legend has it that dozens, maybe hundreds, of Templars escaped there, bringing their martial skill to Bruce's cause. Some accounts claim they appeared at Bannockburn, 1314, charging the English with an unfamiliar ferocity that helped secure Scotland's independence. Do we have proof? No. But the story lingers, cementing the Templars as ghostly saviors in Scotland's hour of need. After 1314, the Templars don't disappear from the historical imagination. They mutate. Some become mercenaries. Some become hospitallers. Some, perhaps, vanish into secretive brotherhoods that will later emerge as Freemasonry, or so the legends claim. In the 18th century, Masonic rites explicitly adopt Templar imagery, presenting their order as heirs to the temple. Historically, it's wishful thinking. But symbolically, it gives the Templars a second life, as eternal guardians of hidden knowledge, now wearing the mask of the Freemason. The Templars' sudden fall left one final, tantalizing mystery. What happened to their secrets? Were they lost in the flames of Jacques de Molay's pyre? Or did the survivors carry them, hidden in coded manuscripts, buried in vaults beneath Rosslyn Chapel, locked in chests that crossed the Atlantic? Some call it nonsense. Others call it the first great conspiracy of the medieval world. We step away from the ports of La Rochelle, from the battlegrounds of Bannockburn, from the sunlit monasteries of Portugal. Everywhere we go, the trail goes cold. But the story never does. Because when you kill an order in darkness, you leave the world to wonder what shadows escaped. Next, we follow those shadows further, into the midst of the Grail, the occult orders, and the strange second lives the Templars live in secret societies and modern imagination. It has been 7 centuries since Jacques de Molay cursed his accusers in the flames, yet the Knights Templar remain alive, not in the halls of power or on the bloodied sands of the Holy Land, but in the world of myth. They are ghosts who refuse to die, reshaped by every era that remembers them. Let's begin with the Freemasons, the brotherhood of architects, philosophers, and revolutionaries who emerged in the early modern period. By the 18th century, certain branches of Masonry began claiming descent from the Templars. Was there any proof? None at all. But the story was irresistible. The Templars, destroyed in France, found refuge in Scotland. There they merged with the medieval stonemasons' guilds. Out of this union rose the Freemasons, carrying forward Templar secrets. This was more than a romantic tale. It gave Freemasonry an aura of ancient authority, connecting their esoteric rituals to a lineage of warrior monks who allegedly guarded the greatest mysteries of Christendom. Templar symbols, the Red Cross, the 2 riders on one horse, the imagery of the Temple of Solomon, soon crept into Masonic iconography. Even the structure of Masonic degrees began echoing the journey of a Templar initiate. For many Freemasons, especially in the so-called Scottish Rite, being a Templar is in history. Its identity. Nowhere does the Templar myth burn brighter than in Rosslyn Chapel. Perched in the Scottish countryside, this 15th century chapel has become a magnet for treasure hunters, historians, and conspiracy theorists alike. Why? Step inside, and you'll see why Rosslyn is no ordinary chapel. The stonework is dizzying. Columns carved with vines, angels, and knights. A series of mysterious, green men pagan fertility symbols tucked into Christian masonry. An apprentice pillar whose swirling patterns some claim encode Kabbalistic symbols or musical notes. But most intriguing are the legends. According to one enduring tale, Rosslyn was built as a Templar vault, a hiding place for their greatest treasures after their fall in 1307. What treasures? Take your pick. The Holy Grail. The head of John the Baptist. The Ark of the Covenant. Entire libraries of secret gospels and alchemical texts. Some say the underground crypt beneath Rosslyn is sealed to this day, concealing chests of relics guarded by spirits or curses. No excavation has ever been permitted. And so, the mystery deepens. This isn't just about Rosslyn. Templar treasure legends ripple across Europe. In France, tales speak of hidden vaults beneath the Paris Temple, its riches spirited away the night before the arrests. In Portugal, rumors swirl of troves buried within the walls of Tomar, the Templars' great fortress that became the heart of the Order of Christ. In Spain, Stories whisper of sacred scrolls smuggled into remote monasteries, protected by monks who claim to know nothing. The missing treasure is a blank canvas, painted by centuries of imagination. Gold. Relics. Forbidden knowledge. The more elusive it is, the more powerful the myth becomes. As centuries pass, the Templars leave the dusty chronicles of medieval history and march into modern pop culture. They become the eternal keepers of the Holy Grail in works like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and The Da Vinci Code. They are recast as immortal guardians in video games like Assassin's Creed, alternately protectors and shadowy overlords. Sometimes they're heroes, noble warriors preserving divine truths. Sometimes they're villains, conspirators pulling the strings of empires. But always they are bigger than life. Perhaps because they embody a paradox that fascinates us still. They were monks, yet warriors. They were poor, yet richer than kings. They were holy men, yet accused of the darkest blasphemies. And they vanished overnight, leaving only questions. That vacuum, that silence, is fertile ground for legends. Every generation projects its fears and fantasies onto the Templars. Medieval peasants imagine them as heretics punished by God. Renaissance mystics imagine them as guardians of secret wisdom. Modern storytellers imagine them as keepers of the Grail, the bloodline of Christ, or the keys to hidden empires. They are whatever we need them to be. We leave Rosslyn now, its crypt sealed, its whispers unsatisfied. We step away from the carved stone and the flickering candlelight of centuries-old myths. But as we go, one thing becomes clear: the Templars never truly died. They live on, in symbols, in stories, in the restless imaginations of those still searching for their treasure. Next, we dive into the unsolved mysteries, the questions history cannot answer, from lost relics to secret archives, and ask what truths may still lie buried in the shadow of the temple. The Templars are gone. Their leaders burned. Their land seized. Their order dissolved. And yet, we can't stop looking for them. Because the Knights of the Temple didn't just die. They vanished. And when something that powerful disappears without a trace, history becomes a hunt. Let's begin with the gold, the treasure of the temple itself. When King Philip IV ordered the mass arrests in 1307, his men stormed Templar commanderies across France. They expected chests brimming with coin, relics, and priceless goods. What did they find? Almost nothing. In Paris, the financial heart of the Templars, the great vaults were eerily empty. Chroniclers whisper of wagons leaving the temple compound by night, guarded by Templar knights, days before the arrests. The convoy, they say, disappeared into the countryside and was never seen again. Did they move their treasure to sympathetic lands, to Portugal, Scotland, or beyond? Or did it sink into the earth itself, hidden in secret vaults only they could access? Nobody knows. And that absence of evidence, that gaping void, has fueled 7 centuries of obsession. Gold is one thing, but the Templar myths aren't just about wealth. They're about relics. The Templars weren't ordinary knights. They lived and fought in the Holy Land, headquartered on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the holiest ground in Judaism and Christianity. Legend says they excavated deep beneath their compound. And what did they find? The Ark of the Covenant? The menorah from the Second Temple? The Holy Grail, Christ's cup from the Last Supper? Secret Gospels or esoteric scriptures suppressed by the Church? In medieval Europe, these weren't mere artifacts. They were weapons, divine keys to power, capable of shaking empires and toppling popes. If the Templars found them, no wonder Philip wanted them gone. Then there are the papers. The Templars weren't just warriors. They were administrators, financiers, and builders of an international network. They kept records, ledgers of their finances, letters from their commanders, instructions from their grand masters. Where are they? Almost none survive. The Vatican holds some trial records. A few charters are scattered in European archives. But the central archive of the Templars, their inner library, has never been found. Did Philip seize and destroy it? Or did the Templars smuggle their most damning, most sacred documents out before the raids? If those papers exist, they could rewrite what we know about the Crusades, the medieval church, and the Templars themselves. Some say the trail leads to Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, its crypt sealed and silent since the 15th century. Others point to Rennes-le-Château, a French village infamous for its links to treasure hunters and conspiracy theorists who claim it hides not just Templar wealth, but the very bloodline of Christ. Still others look to Tomar in Portugal, where the Templars re-emerged as the Order of Christ, the same order that later funded explorers like Vasco da Gama and Henry the Navigator. What did they carry into the New World? And were those voyages just about empire, or about hiding something too dangerous to leave in Europe? Finally, we come to the strangest mystery. Did the Templars acquire knowledge, religious, mystical, or scientific, that the Church considered too dangerous to exist? Some esoteric traditions claim the Templars encountered Sufi mystics, Jewish Kabbalists, and Eastern alchemists in the Holy Land, blending their wisdom with Christian mysticism. Others say they uncovered Gnostic texts, writings that challenged the Church's narrative about Christ, the Apostles, or the very nature of salvation. To medieval Europe, such knowledge was worse than heresy. It was apocalypse. And if they had it, they could not be allowed to live. 700 years later, the questions remain. Where did the Templars' treasure go? What truths are buried in their missing archives? Did they truly guard relics of Christ, or even knowledge that could break the Church's grip on Europe? We may never know. But maybe that's why their legend endures. Because the Templars left us something more powerful than gold or relics. A void. A silence. A mystery big enough for every generation to fill with its own fears and fantasies. I would like to tell you a little more about the bloodline and Grail conspiracies. The Holy Grail is many things to many people, a chalice, a relic, a metaphor for divine grace. But in the deepest layers of the myth, in the theories whispered in secret circles and splashed across modern bestsellers, the Grail isn't a cup at all. It's a person, a family, a bloodline. This shift begins with a provocative idea. What if Mary Magdalene wasn't just a disciple of Jesus, but his wife? It's a claim that surfaces in medieval heresies and resurfaces centuries later in books like Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code. According to this theory, Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married. They had a child, or children, whose descendants survived the crucifixion. Mary, pregnant or with young children, fled Jerusalem after Christ's death, possibly finding refuge in Gaul, modern France. The Grail, then, isn't a vessel for Christ's blood. It is Christ's bloodline itself. The wordplay fuels this. In Old French, Saint Graal, Holy Grail, can be read as sang real. Royal blood. If this theory is true, the Templars become more than warrior monks. They become guardians of a divine bloodline, protectors of Christ's living descendants. The idea dovetails neatly with their mysterious excavations on the Temple Mount. What if they weren't just building a headquarters? What if they were searching for buried evidence of Christ's family, genealogies, letters, or even the bones of Magdalene herself? This frames their sudden rise to wealth and power in a new light. Perhaps they uncovered something so explosive that the Church had no choice but to tolerate them, until Philip forced its hand. It also recasts their sudden fall. If Philip feared the Templars held secrets that could undermine the Church and its authority, destroying them wasn't just about debt. It was about erasing knowledge that could shatter Christendom. This theory gets even more tangled when it merges with Merovingian lore, the dynasty that ruled early medieval France. Some esoteric traditions claim the Merovingians were direct descendants of Christ and Mary Magdalene. In this telling, the Templars didn't just protect a bloodline. They supported it politically, forming alliances with noble houses that traced their lineage back to Christ himself. To the medieval mind, this would have been both heresy and revolution, a Christ-blooded dynasty challenging Rome's spiritual monopoly. No conspiracy is complete without a treasure map. In this case, the map points to Rennes-le-Château, a tiny French village at the foot of the Pyrenees. In the late 19th century, a local priest named Berenger Saunier mysteriously came into great wealth after allegedly discovering coded parchments in his church. Legend says these documents contain proof of the bloodline of Christ, hidden genealogies and maps of the Grail treasure. Some claim Saunier rebuilt his church with symbolic architecture, quietly encoding the secret into its walls. And who supposedly left these parchments? The Templars. To historians, these theories are fringe at best, speculative, sensational, often unsupported by hard evidence. But to those who believe, they explain everything. The Templars' inexplicable rise in power, their sudden and brutal destruction, the enduring obsession with their lost archives and relics. If they truly carried the living legacy of Christ, the stakes weren't just political or financial. They were apocalyptic. Why do these bloodline conspiracies capture us so powerfully? Because they humanize the divine. They suggest that Jesus wasn't just a distant savior on a cross, but a man who loved, who had a family, whose legacy flows through veins rather than stone chalices. And they give the Templars, long since turned to ash, a purpose that transcends time. Not warriors for Christ, but guardians of Christ's living truth. We leave Rennes-le-Château now, its crumbling stones humming with rumor, its church still standing like a coded riddle. Whether these theories are history, heresy, or fantasy, they ensure one thing: the Templars will never rest quietly in their graves. Because as long as people search for the blood of Christ, they will search for the knights who guarded it. Next, we bring our journey to a close, with their true legacy. How an order of warrior monks, destroyed in fire and scandal, still shapes our world today. 7 centuries after the last Templar burned in the shadow of Notre Dame, their story should be over. The Order of the Temple should be nothing more than a footnote in the chronicles of medieval Europe, a cautionary tale about power, greed, and the wrath of kings. And yet, they remain everywhere. In our books, our films, our secret societies, in the whispers of conspiracy theorists, and the quiet pride of fraternal orders. The Templars refused to die. Perhaps they never did. Walk through the hills of Tomar in Portugal, where the Convento de Cristo still stands, its rotunda echoing the Templars' old Jerusalem headquarters. Stare up at the walls of Croc des Chevaliers, the Syrian fortress so formidable it still intimidates visitors today. Trace your fingers along the enigmatic carvings of Rosslyn Chapel, where angels and green men dance side by side in stone, and legends whisper of treasure hidden beneath your feet. These are not just ruins. They are echoes, a reminder that the Templars were not merely monks with swords, but builders, whose hands shaped landscapes as surely as their swords shaped history. Look beyond the stone. Look at their systems. The Templars revolutionized finance, inventing early forms of banking that allowed money to move across continents. They turned a fractured medieval economy into something startlingly modern, a web of credit, promissory notes, and international exchange that prefigures today's global finance. In the Catholic Church, their fall became a cautionary tale, a reminder that no power, not even one cloaked in holiness, can stand above papal authority. In Portugal, they lived on as the Order of Christ, funding the voyages of Henry the Navigator, Vasco da Gama, and the empire that mapped the edges of the world. Their bones may be ash, but their influence endures in the architecture of exploration and trade that built the modern age. If you want to see how myths live longer than men, look at the Freemasons. These brotherhoods, rising in the 17th and 18th centuries, embraced the Templars as spiritual ancestors. They wrapped themselves in Templar imagery. The Red Cross. The 2 knights on one horse. The symbolism of Solomon's Temple. To be a Masonic Templar is not to wield a sword, but to join a lineage of guardians, keepers of secrets passed down from those who once stood between pilgrims and death. Whether the historical link is real doesn't matter. The myth is the point. And then there is the Templars' greatest immortality, in our stories. They are the Grail Knights in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The shadowy puppet masters in Assassin's Creed. The heretical truth seekers in the Da Vinci Code. Sometimes they are heroes, incorruptible guardians of sacred relics. Sometimes they are villains, cabals plotting in the dark. But they are always fascinating, because we see in them what we want to see. A lost army of God. A brotherhood of mystics. A secret society guarding the line between the known and the forbidden. The Templars endure because they are unfinished. Their end was too abrupt, their archives too empty, their secrets too well kept. When Philip IV burned Jacques de Molay, he destroyed a body but left a ghost, one that has been haunting us ever since. They endure because they represent a paradox that still draws us. Holy warriors, humbled by vows yet swollen with power, condemned as heretics yet remembered as martyrs, erased from history yet immortal in legend. And so, as the night deepens and the last candles burn low, we leave them, not as they died, bound in chains and smoke, but as they still live, on horseback under the red cross, silent and watchful, riding roads that stretch beyond time. Perhaps toward Jerusalem. Perhaps toward secrets we will never know. The Knights Templar are gone. And yet they are everywhere. The roads are empty now. The banners are furled. The last of the Templar fortresses sink into shadow, their stones cool under the weight of centuries. We leave them where we found them, somewhere between history and dream, between sword and psalm. You can almost hear them, can't you? The creak of saddle leather. The faint clink of mail in the dark. A brotherhood riding out under the red cross, their faces hidden, their vows unbroken. Perhaps they are only ghosts now. Perhaps they never truly left. The Templars teach us something that lingers, that power can be holy, that faith can be dangerous, and that some stories, no matter how brutally cut short, refuse to end. So rest now. Let the clamor of their battles fade, let the torches dim. The nights are gone, but their whispers remain, carried on the wind across 700 years. And maybe, just maybe, if you dream deeply enough, you'll hear them still, a chorus of forgotten warriors riding through the night, keeping secrets the world was never meant to know. And so, as the night settles, may these echoes of the past guide you gently into dreams. And now, I believe you're already drifting off, so just let the soft crackle of the fire carry you into the sweetest dreams.